I was saying is that in the spirit of that resolution, the section 115505B, we wanted to propose that certain modifications be, the resolutions be modified to include 3 particular conditions, and I've annotated them on the site plan that was submitted by the developer to show those 3 conditions. I have a copy. I don't know if you want to, since you all have your own copy, maybe you don't need it, but I put this down so I can actually potentially to refer. So the first condition we're proposing relates to what is referred to as the 1.5 acre parcel on the east end of the consolidated parcel. As you can see, now by the way, the hand annotations are mine, but the drawing was what was attached to a letter that the city sent to us notifying us of a meeting. So that was prepared by the developer. And you'll see on the eastern end of the property, it says existing woods to remain. Now, as we talked about it, or as I talked about last time, 2 weeks ago, there were numerous references in the BZA by the developer that was their intention. And one of the things we're asking for is to have any approved resolution modified to include a condition that proportion would be remained undisturbed, undeveloped, and unmodified in perpetuity. We have no beef with CA Senior Living LLC. They've done a very nice job of reaching out to and listening to the nearby community, and they've made it clear that that's their intent, to keep the 1.5 acre parcel undeveloped. But suppose they were to sell the developed property to someone in the future. In the absence of a specific restriction in perpetuity, a future owner of the property could take a different approach. Suppose it wanted to build, for example, a storage shed to store some machinery or equipment there, or to store some road salt. I mean, they could come back to council and they could perhaps legitimately look in the record, and there's nothing that would specifically say that property had to remain undeveloped. So all of those kind of potential developments would degrade the intended buffering that the developer states on their plan, existing woods to remain. So we're just looking for something that would be a little stronger and would be binding, such that that property would indeed remain undisturbed, undeveloped, and unmodified in perpetuity, with no buildings, no structures, no pathways, etc. Another proposed condition, which I'm taking a little out of order, it's my item number 3 in my hand annotations, is to require some additional buffering on the eastern end, the eastern edge of the roadway as it loops back up to the north to Lander Haven Drive. We're thinking of something along the lines of the evergreen trees. You can see along the entire southern border, there's evergreen trees dividing the southern portion of this development from the northern boundary of the Cedar Road residence. So we're just asking that those evergreens be continued around the roadway all the way up to Lander Haven Drive to provide a little extra buffering. And the third proposed condition, which is actually item number 2 on there, is to restrict the in-out access on the eastern part of the circular road. It's the area that I've circled and with the little number 2 by it. Essentially, we think that eastern access, which is very close to the 90-degree bend in the road, should be limited only to police, fire, and emergency vehicles. In other words, it should not be available to the general public, the residents that are there, to their visitors, or to workers. And partly because of its location, very close to the bend in the road, I mean, it seems like there might be some safety issues from my perspective, and also some of the additional turning in and out. So we're proposing that as well. And in order to not interfere with the police, fire, and emergency access, there are gates with arms that can be activated, just like the police and fire, when they are approaching traffic lights, can change the traffic signals. The same kind of mechanism can be put on that kind of access gate. So we believe that all of these conditions are wholly consistent with the intent of the city's code and with the intentions that the developer stated to the Board of Zoning Appeals when it applied for the 6 variances. And we respectfully request that they should be built into the resolutions in a way that will be binding and enforceable against the current owner and against future owners of the property. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard?
Good evening. My name is Ralph Rosenthal, and I'm also a resident of Lander Haven Court. I live at 2223 Lander Haven Court, and I also happen to have spoken with Susan Sabetta, Councilwoman Susan Sabetta, about the situation. Rather than reiterating everything that Mr. Silverstein said, I concur with it. We've spoken, obviously. I wanted to mention 2 other things, 2 other items that council will hopefully keep in mind. And I agree that both council and the developers have done a good job in assuring that there's to the surrounding neighbors and the integrity of the neighborhood and the project. And I think it's very important that we keep in mind what Mr. Silverstein has said. And one thing that I would add to what he said is that, and I would propose, I'll go to the bottom line of what I want to say. I would propose that and suggest to the developer that a restrictive covenant, not just that it be noted somewhere, but that a restrictive covenant be imposed upon the property and included in the deed from the current owner to the current developer. I have every good belief in their intentions. They've been very honorable and very upfront. I attended one of their meetings. I think they're doing a great job. But as Mr. Silverstein said, I don't know who's going to own it next. Council doesn't know. They have requested variances. It's entirely possible that the next owner will request a variance just to put up a small shed or something very innocuous. I don't know what the current drawing, site plan, or resolutions will really, what force and effect they will have on a subsequent owner. I do know what a restrictive covenant would do to the property, and I have every reason to believe that if that were acceptable, and I see no reason why it would not be acceptable to the developer. They've already indicated they have no intention of building there. It's supposed to be parkland. I've seen some indications that there are some environmental or water issues there. But I think this would assure all of us, both council, the city, as well as the neighborhood, that it will remain this way. And in particular, I'm thinking about if somebody wants to sell, perhaps somebody even on Cedar Road or on Lander Haven Court, and a prospective buyer says, well, what's going on over there? I see some work going on, etc. It's simple to say, well, don't worry, that buffer will remain. And you don't have to go through explaining, well, you have to go look at the public, the records of council and the resolutions and the variances. People don't want to do that. People don't understand that. But most people understand what a restrictive covenant is. And I think that gives great assurance to any prospective buyers, somebody of my property, somebody on Cedar Road, and it also gives us enforceable remedies. And also, which I think is something important to council as part of their duties and responsibilities, it maintains the value and it helps maintain the value of our property. and that's good for everybody. And I would also commend both the developers and council and make note that I think this project is going to occur. And I also point out, which probably everybody knows, to my knowledge, this is the first type of property for elderly, et cetera, in Mayfield Heights, assisted living. And I think that's probably a good thing. And I think we should carry through with it in that regard in the best way possible. So I think it's going to occur, but I want it to occur, or I hope it occurs, in the best sense for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard?
Mrs. Snyder, before you close the public portion, I noticed that Mr. Orvatz, the architect for Muscat Properties, is present. If he has this the conceptual landscape drawings and the facade rendering, you don't have it? Okay, then never mind. I was going to say, it'd be nice to show council what the property was going to look like. He showed it to us during planning commission meeting, and I thought maybe he would be here tonight. So, nope, that's okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Nobody else wants to be heard? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public portion. It is now 8:50. Next on our agenda are resolutions, beginning with Resolution 2018-4. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-4, a resolution authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, energized community grants and declaring an emergency. Third reading.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo, second by Mrs. Sabetta. We received a memo from Mr. Tribby authorizing the mayor to apply for and receive grants from NOPEC Energized Community Grant Program. The city will be working with Gardner to determine what types of improvements will be eligible for this grant funding that will hopefully reduce the consumption of both gas and electric. At the last meeting, you heard from Mr. Finaro and the mayor. They spoke explaining this further. And Mayor, is there anything else you would like to add to this?
Thank you. I think it might be a good idea to have Mr. Finaro come back up and further explain what projects the money can be used for. And there was some misunderstanding, I think, last time as to who had control of the funds. And I think that needs to be explained, that we determined the project. Gardner was just helping us with some possible scenarios, but this is potentially $70,000 a year that I do not think that the city just wants to not take advantage of. But I would ask that, if it's okay with you, Madam President, that Mr. Finaro kind of explain the thing.
So we had a couple concerns where who's going to control it, what projects are we looking at, and the projects we're looking at are HVAC in City Hall, which we all know we have issues, and this is a good opportunity to use some funds and not have the city put out all the money to fix our issues here. A couple other projects where it's all related to energy efficiency, so we have a few garage doors out at the salt bin, which don't last very long with the salt trucks in there, that we'd like to replace. So we have a couple ideas of projects that we want to use the money for.
Okay, does any member have any questions for Mr. Finaro, the mayor? Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn? Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
5-1 vote.
This resolution has passed. Resolution 2018-6, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And as a note, the next 6 resolutions are concerning 11 Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers. And I will read the parcel numbers for the first one, but then I'll just refer to the property after that and not repeat all 11 permanent parcel numbers. Resolution 2018-6, a resolution approving a lot consolidation of Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 863-26-008, 863-26-009, 863-27-007, 863-27-008, 863-27-009, 863-27-010, 863-27-011, 863-27-012, 863-28-007, 863-28-008, and 863-28-009, known in the future as the property, so as to create one parcel for the development of a new, independent, assisted memory care senior living facility. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestreo. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. So
Was not
this motion
suspended.
will be placed on second reading. Move to Resolution 2018-7, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-7, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Matt Bouma on behalf of CA Senior Living Holdings, LLC, 6200 Lander Haven Drive, a variance to reduce the minimum lot area of the development from 12 acres to 11.7 acres. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This motion will be placed on second reading. Resolution 2018-8, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-8, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Matt Bouma on behalf of CA Senior Living Holdings, LLC, 6200 Lander Haven Drive, a variance to increase the maximum building coverage from 15% to 29% to permit lower buildings to be constructed. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestreo. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution will be placed on second reading. Resolution 2018-9, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-9, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Matt Bouma on behalf of CA Senior Living Holdings, LLC, 6200 Lander Haven Drive, a variance to reduce the building setback from 150 feet to 120 feet. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rule?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Bellistria,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
No.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This motion will be placed on second reading. Okay, at this time, the applicant would like to say something, so I need a motion for discussion.
Moved.
Mrs. Tressi and second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Bellistria,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Mr. Bowie, you can come up to the stand. Or Chris, Mr. Russ.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Bruce Rinker, and I was asked by Mr. Russ, whom you do know, to attend with him here tonight, and we appreciate the opportunity to talk. We had misunderstood. We had thought that even though in the open portion, typically you ask people to speak to the pending legislation, Mr. Russ had understood that for this particular question, that you might want to hear from him. So I'm going to defer to him in just a moment. What we're requesting is that there is a matter set for tomorrow night, as Councilwoman Sabetta mentioned, for Board of Zoning Appeals. Evidently, there was, through inadvertence, a miscalculation of the front yard setback on Lander Haven Drive. And so presently, the pending motion right now would be for whether or not it would go to second or third reading. However, based on discussions that Mr. Russ has had, our understanding is that the council might be willing to consider modification of this to reflect the correction in the record of the proper setback. Evidently, it was just the wrong measurement that was made, but the fundamental basis for the front yard setback remains what it was before the BZA, which really is to give relief for the people who are on Cedar Road behind the property to the south. In other words, it's pushing it farther north, which violates the setback. On the other hand, you're pushing a more intensive use to what we already know is a very intensive use in Lander Haven itself. So it seemed to make a whole lot of sense. I think the BZA voted unanimously to approve it, believing it was a different measurement. So the request would be that under your code, should council wish to modify, we would ask that there be the modification. But I think because of the other issues that were broached by some of the members from Lander Haven Court, that Mr. Russ wanted also to address some of these screening and buffering questions as well. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Russ.
Thank you, Mr. Rinker.
Good evening, Chris Russ with CA Senior Living. Great, yes, I just wanted to address the public comments related to the buffering and screening, if I could. As they said, and as I've said all along, it's certainly our intention to keep the woods remaining there in perpetuity. Speaking to the evergreens coming around the corner, that's something we had spoke offline about as well, a couple of the neighbors, and we're certainly willing to do that. So where they draw evergreens coming up this edge, that's good. We can add that to our landscape plan. We don't have a problem there. As far as language goes related to the existing woods to remain, I believe there is language in the resolution related to that, but we're willing to make an adjustment to that if the council feels that that's appropriate. That is fine with us. And related to the gate, that was something new. Hearing that tonight, I will say, really, there's a number of reasons we would like to keep that open, and why it was intentionally kept open, is really for the majority of the folks that are coming to visit us are all going to come through the main entrance, and they're going to try and park near the main entrance because everybody has to check in at the main entrance before they go into the building. So really, that secondary entrance, for just as safety reasons, we want to let emergency vehicles come in. I would like that to be free flowing so that folks can leave when they need to in any sort of instead of having to go all the way back around this long looping road and only be able to get in and out one side. It would also allow us to keep some of our delivery box trucks from having to go in front of that front door every day as well. As far as safety considerations are concerned with it, this was, you know, reviewed and designed by our civil engineer, and then also reviewed by the traffic engineers as well. There were no comments related to that sight distance from that curve. So I'd like to leave that open if we could, but willing to hear any comments you have related to these.
Mr. Balestria.
Snyder, thank you. Mr. Russ, thank you very much for your willingness to work with the residents and work with the city council. As Mr. Silverstein mentioned, we did have a lengthy discussion with regards to the landscaping, and I told him that would entirely be up to you as a developer. As far as the language for the woods to remain, I would defer that to our law director as to what the proper language would be as far as perpetuity, or if such language as the restrictive covenant can go with that property long term. And I do agree with you as far as keeping that open. I also spoke to Mr. Silverstein regarding that, you know, and I'm sure our safety forces would not want to have any kind of a barrier or anything like that that could possibly mechanically go wrong. This is going to be a senior development. I'm sure we're going to have more trips just, you know, by the age of the residents to this property. So we want our safety forces to be able to get in and out of there very quickly. So I just want to say thank you for your willingness to work with the city and work with our residents. It's very much appreciated.
Sure, thank you.
Can you show us the plan so people can see the plan, the original? The whole, oh, that's the whole thing, okay. That's fine.
Madam President.
Mr. DeJohn.
Mr. Russ, would you entertain a restricted covenants on that 1 acre lot there, that 1.5 acre lot there?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
So I guess to summarize procedurally, given the fact that suspension is not in order tonight due to the voting, nonetheless, we think if the modification were adopted by council, that way would line everything up. And I think you all can appreciate for the developer to have everything synchronous. It is very useful for just planning the project going forward, and I think it's in everyone's best interest. So we would ask that if you do the modification, understanding we still have to come back here for a final vote, which hopefully will be favorable, this would, I think, smooth things out and relieves the BZA of one extra matter for tomorrow night, which we would appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Mrs. Tressi, did you? Okay, we're good. Thank you so much.
Madam President?
Oh, Mayor.
If I could, can I address a question to Mr. DeJohn real quick?
Sure.
Is there, Mr. DeJohn, is there any questions that the applicant can answer for you today that would kind of maybe answer your questions as to trying to make this, you know, go forward as quickly as possible?
Well, just a couple questions, if I'm allowed to.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, well, the first question is I'd like to see the modification for the covenants, restrictive covenants on that acre lot. I mean, you know, so we'd have to ask the council if they want to do that. And then the other thing is, I noticed that the wall is a little on the south property line, uneven there. Can you explain the reason for that?
You're talking about where it jogs right here?
Correct.
Sure. So for this to be a level site, which we need for this type of senior development, we are cutting dirt. The whole site slopes from east to west, so we're cutting dirt from the east side and filling on the west side. So what happens then is on this east side, really this driveway is about 8 feet lower than the property line. So the idea is if it's going to be a screen wall, to actually have it screen something, it needs to be on the top of the slope for the most benefit. So on the east side, we have it at the top of the slope, which is right closer to the property line. As we go west and the site starts to level out with this existing residential lots, and then eventually starts to get higher, we jogged the wall closer to the driveway so that it would remain at the highest slope adjacent to the southern property so as we get down to the corner, it's providing the most benefit at the top of that slope, which is closer to the drive. But farther away, does that make sense, or? Okay.
Yes, I believe so. And the masonry wall, will it match the building?
Yes, it will be complementary to the building, definitely in color and in material, how we clad it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. May I ask our law director a question?
Sure. Go
Uh,
ahead.
Mr. Murphy, how would we proceed if we wanted to add the restrictive covenant and,
You saw me writing this out, right?
I couldn't read it from here, that's why I thought I'd ask.
It's upside down.
I mean, how do we proceed? We've put them on second reading and
Yes, and actually, I was thinking about it while Mr. DeJohn was asking his questions and indicating that he would like language in the grant, the confirmation that would include a restrictive covenant. So I was kind of scratching that out. And what I would suggest is I would add a section specifically delineating that the deed transferring title, because title is not transferred yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The deed transferring title to the developer contain a provision satisfactory to me as Director of Law that says that 1.5 acre park area would never be built on, and include that in the legislation. That would require modifying the decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is no big deal. Council's done that before. But if that were to be modified and the legislation amended in that way, then it would be proper if, since you were the dissenting vote, we need 6 to suspend the rules. If you would like to reconsider I think it's 4 that have been already placed on second reading, you could indicate that you would reconsider that, and then council could vote again on suspending the rules and maybe dealing with this legislation this evening.
Madam President?
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes, I can do that, and as far as the additional evergreens on that easterly property line, can you accommodate
Yes, we'll accommodate the evergreens. Yes, exactly. That's fine to make that a condition as well, along that eastern border at the edge of our driveway between the existing woods and our driveway.
Okay, so that's good. We can proceed and.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions from anybody? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're okay with revoting on the suspension for those 4 pieces of legislation?
Yes, and just one question. Do you know the parcel number? For that? Don't you have to put it
have I
in?
memorized them, or?
No. The parcel number for that 1.5.
Oh, that 1 acre, the 1.5. I don't know. I'm not sure it's a specific parcel number. It's more than one, but wait a minute. Watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat here. Yeah. No, it's shown as one parcel, and it doesn't have the individual parcel numbers. But I could specifically delineate the 1.5 acres on the easterly part of the parcel that has been delineated on the plans as park area.
Okay.
And state that will, because it's more than one permanent parcel number.
So would I make a motion and go back through all of these? starting with 2018-6.
I think you would make a motion that you would like to reconsider your vote for the, those four resolutions, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, I'll make that motion to reconsider 2018-6, 2018-7, 2018-8, and 2018-9, with the understanding that the 1.5 acre lot on the easterly border will have a restricted covenants that it will remain as a park.
Anybody can second? Second. Okay.
Mr. Mano, second.
And then, roll call on the reconsideration of Mr. DeJohn's vote.
Lisa?
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move to resolution 2018-6, Mr. Murphy.
It's already been read. It's on it's on second reading. So a motion to suspend the rules would be proper at this time.
Okay, do I have a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by
Second.
Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Tressi.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mano. So we had a lot of discussion. Does anybody else have anything to say? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. Resolution 2018-7, Mr. Murphy.
It's already been read. It's on second reading, so it would be proper to have a motion
Is there a
to
motion to
suspend.
suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second
Second.
by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved. Second.
By Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. Mano. Is there any discussion with this resolution? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes, this resolution has passed. Moving to resolution 2018-8, Mr. Murphy.
Already read. It's proper for a motion to suspend.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mrs. Teresi. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Roll call on the motion to approve. Is there a motion to approve? Sorry. Moved by Mr. Balestrea,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Any discussion? All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belastria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes, this resolution has been approved. Resolution 2018-9, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is proper for a motion to suspend, but as Mr. Russ said, he has requested that the decision of the BZA be modified to change the setback from 120 feet, the variance, that is, from 120 feet to 109 feet. So the proper procedure, if council were of a mind to grant this modification, would be motion to suspend, and then there would a motion to adopt, and then there would be discussion, if any, on the requested modification, and then a motion to amend the legislation in order to modify it, and then a motion to adopt the legislation as modified. Clear?
Well,
Mr. Murphy.
can I, is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Belstraya. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belestria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Now, is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. The discussion. This is about the modification, setback from 120 feet to 109 feet in order to accommodate the cottages. Is there a motion to modify the action of the BZA by establishing the building setback at 109 feet?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, second by Mrs. Tressi. Roll call on the motion to modify.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Belestria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Now, motion to approve as modified.
Moved.
Motion by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Belestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution is adopted as modified. Good?
We're good.
Okay. All right, Resolution 2018-10. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-10, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Matt Bouma on behalf of CA Senior Living Holdings, LLC, 6200 Lander Haven Drive, a variance to eliminate the requirement for a 6-foot masonry buffer wall on the westerly 130 feet of the south property line, as well as on the west property line, in order to preserve mature existing vegetation already acting as a buffer. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Belestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, second by Mrs. Tressi. This is to eliminate the buffer wall. Is there anything else to add, Mrs. Sabetta? From the meeting, anything? No. Okay. Any questions about this?
Madam President,
Mr.
is this where we would talk about adding
The next one.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Anything further from anybody? All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. Moving to Resolution 2018-11, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-11, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Matt Bouma on behalf of CA Senior Living Holdings, LLC, 6200 Lander Haven Drive, a variance to eliminate the requirement for a 6-foot masonry buffer wall on the easterly 170 feet of the south property line in order to preserve mature existing vegetation already acting as a buffer. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta? Yes. Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria,
Moved.
second by Mrs. Tressi. So the discussion, we'll let Mr. Murphy take care of this one.
Okay, there is a motion to approve on the floor. What I would suggest is that a section be added to the resolution, which would basically change the caption to make it modifying instead of confirming. And the caption would also, by establishing a contingency regarding the park area, that would be added. And also in section 1, council would modify instead of confirm by establishing a contingency regarding the park area. I would suggest adding a section regarding the deed, which would require the deed transferring title to contain a restrictive covenant with language satisfactory to the Director of Law, prohibiting any development of the 1.5 acre park area, and also including a reference to the evergreen trees on the east property line, as was requested by Mr. Silverstein. And you're right, it's not on the property line, it's on the area, it would be the westerly border of the park area, right?
Would anybody else like to add anything? Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Russ, I noticed that you stopped the vegetation before you got to the property line there. Was there a reason for that?
Sure, at this area right here?
Correct.
Yeah, so that was really one of the main reasons for asking for that variance, is since we're not touching this piece, to take the trees farther across.
Can you put it up a little bit so I can?
Oh, sorry, yep. Since there's all existing vegetation along that southern property line there, it didn't make sense to plant trees in the middle of the woods, if you will, especially if we're gonna carry it around and create kind of really a seamless line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Balestria, did you have something?
No, I just want to ask Mr. Murphy, you need a motion to amend as per the law. I'll make that motion to amend per the law director's modifications.
Second. So we have second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to modify.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. I need a roll call on the motion to approve as modified.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution has been adopted as modified. Resolution 2018-15, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-15, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Malamet Communications, LLC, to provide professional consulting and communication services in connection with community education and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Balestria. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Tressi?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This motion will be placed on second reading. Resolution 2018-18, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-18, a resolution accepting a proposal for supplementing the Mayfield Heights Code of Ordinances from American Legal Publishing Corporation. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Tracy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Tracy. Second
Second.
by Mr. DeJohn. Okay. This is a housekeeping item. We received a memo. This is how we receive our ordinances viewed online. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tracy?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. Next, we'll move to ordinances. Ordinance 2018-9, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance 2018-9, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Mayfield Heights to enter into a collective bargaining contract with Local 1500 of the International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, Firefighters Bargaining Unit, and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea. Second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Tracy?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This motion is placed on second reading. Ordinance 2018-10, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2018-10, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Mayfield Heights to enter into a collective bargaining contract with the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, Police Patrolman Bargaining Unit, and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Because this is an ethical conflict for me, I am going to abstain from all discussion. I am able to conduct this portion of the meeting per our law director. So is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea,
Second.
by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tracy?
No.
Mrs. Snyder?
Abstain. This ordinance has been placed on second reading. Mr. Murphy.
A comment. By state law, if council does not vote to accept or reject a collective bargaining agreement in 30 days after it's been presented, then it's automatically accepted. And these two contracts were presented to council at the last meeting, February 26th, so 30 days would be March 28th. Council has to act by that point.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ordinance 2018-11, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance 2018-11, an ordinance amending Chapter 794 of the codified ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights regarding municipal income tax by amending Section 794.05 and enacting Section 794.27 and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to approve? I'm sorry. This motion will be put on first reading.
Second.
By Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to put on first reading.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This ordinance was placed on first reading. We'll move to more motions this evening. We have one. Mr. Murphy, could you please read this?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a final site plan for an addition for Muska Properties LLC at 6262 Mayfield Road.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria. Second by Mrs. Sabetta. I believe this was a unanimous vote by planning. Mr. Balestria, do you
Yes.
have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I discussed it during my report, so unless the council has any further questions, you can go forward with the approval.
Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Balestria, just one question. So I know the building is gonna be deeper than the existing property there, existing building. Is that taking away a row of parking?
No, I don't believe it's taken any parking away. It's still meeting the code that was required. In fact, that they were going to initially remove even a couple other parking spaces that the applicant decided that it would be in the best interest of the property to leave in for at least a place for stacking snow. And then after further review, we did agree that, you know, to leave remaining 2 parking spaces that we originally would like to have seen landscaped. So it's been a good working relationship, but there'll be plenty of parking on the property.
Do you know how much deeper this building will be than the existing? Does anybody know that?
No, I don't recall. Mayor, do you?
Madam President,
Mayor.
I believe it's the same footprint as the building that came down, which was deeper than the existing building was before. So it's on the footprint of the building that came down. So that is a little bit deeper, if you remember how that was configured.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Can I have a roll call on this motion?
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This motion has been passed. At this time, there is no further business on our agenda. We will now recess into executive session. It is 8:35.